Don't let your mind space get too chaotic, thinking who's doing what. Uh, Even if it's not consciously, subconsciously, I don't think that helps. Generally, when you go back in history, things like that are not very sustainable. Uh, I personally hope that when things correct and become more rational, they do not happen drastically. In the last 10, 20 years, the Nifty has gone up on average 11%. That to me is extremely good. 4, 5, 6 years of trading, I started believing that technical analysis works.
So you started investing at an age of 17. Kaise? How?
So I used to work for a call center back then. I had started working early, had stopped education. Since I worked in the night, the UK shift, 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., I had plenty of time. I was also lucky in having a brother, friends, colleagues who were in the trading ecosystem back then. And it kind of like made it easier for me to enter the world of trading.
Research करना कब start किया? And when did you found your process?
So that process has been changing constantly. I would say in the very early years, in the first 4, 5, 6 years of trading, I started believing that technical analysis works. Okay, so I would read books about candlesticks, about wave theory, about Fibonacci numbers, and I would try and apply them to my trading. What I realized very late, I should have realized earlier, is when you look back at data, when you try and backtest any strategy, it's very easy to nudge a strategy left and right, and kind of curve fit it to think that it works. Technical analysis is much like that. It follows the premise that patterns which have occurred in the past will probably recur again. And it took me a long time to wane away from that, but I spent many years on that. So initially I began with the technical analysis thing. Yeah.
Then post technical analysis, then
Post technical analysis, there was this course called CQF. It was about quantitative finance. So you realize that trend following does not work necessarily. So then you start looking at things like mean regression and correlation, and how to do pair trading. I used to, for a long time, try to run strategies which would work on the correlation in between Indian markets and say Hang Seng. Hang Seng in India used to be really correlated back then.
So what I can truly say from your journey is कि आप हमेशा market के according you kept changing yourself as well. What do you think next 10 years में क्या change हो सकता है market में?
मुझे लगता है we're entering a very different phase from what we have witnessed in the last decade plus. In the last 10, 20 years, the Nifty has gone up on average 11%. That to me is extremely good. The ecosystem was so ripe with opportunities that everybody did well, right? Like a vast majority of, I wouldn't say everybody, but people who are disciplined enough to, diversify, not borrow and trade, not leverage, trade with stops, and put in some amount of work. A lot of them have done well, exceedingly well. Hence, you hear stories like, Junjunwala and Damani and all these like really big traders and investors who have come out of India. Same with the US, Warren Buffett and all these people who did really well in these last few decades. I don't think that same way of investing will work in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Market has gotten more efficient today. And I think the number of opportunities where you find something cheap, invest in it and make 5, 10 times the returns, those opportunities will be harder to come by.
So what's next?
I don't know. I think sluggish markets, in my opinion, because of how expensive everything is today. We have priced in companies today with the assumption that there will be 10 years of growth. And we are pricing them today like the 10 years have already occurred. When you look at many companies, there are chemical companies trading at 100 times. There are power companies trading at 500 times. And I'm not talking about exceptions to the rule, but I'm talking about many companies like this. Generally, when you go back in history, things like that are not very sustainable. I personally hope that when things correct and become more rational, they do not happen drastically. I would much rather prefer a market which goes down 1% every day, or 10% every year, much more than something where it falls 30% in a day. Actually, I would say that is fair on both sides. I don't like when it goes up 30%. I don't like when it comes down 30%.
Slow and steady.
Whenever things get chaotic in terms of price action to that extent, many people get burned in the market, but more so the retail small investors. And I don't think that is good for the ecosystem. The markets are thriving today to a certain extent because ever since the pandemic, when that crash happened, a lot of retail has come in. And for the first time in a long time, retail has actually made money. When you go back in time, your grandfather, not in your household maybe because of where you're from, but if you're like a South Indian boy, or if you're from a background which is more, how do I say it, not business oriented but education oriented, you've all grown up with stories about how stock markets
Gambling
are
and
bad
stock
and
market.
gambling and all that. That narrative will only change when enough people make money. Investing will become mainstream when those stories are replaced with, my father made 10% a year for a 30-year journey, and he did really well in life. So I hope for that reason these dramatic ups and downs do not happen. And the onus is on all of us to do reasonable things in the market, but at some levels also on the people managing our monetary policy and our government to make sure these big spikes and troughs don't happen. Like, I could give you an example right now, considering where inflation seems to be. I think interest rates in India should have been a lot higher a long time ago. That slowly shocking the system probably prevents a big shock from happening down the road.
So I would like you to list down 3 biggest mistakes which you made and you think that retailers are still making.
Forget retailers, even I am still making.
So 3 mistakes.
There are many mistakes that are mistakes, but sometimes you can't help yourself. I think watching the news is a big mistake.
Why? I think love to be updated, no?
Yeah, but the problem is ना आजकल news में news कम होता है and opinions ज़्यादा होती है, right? So when I turn on a TV channel today to watch the news, whatever it might be, right? You always have people with ideas and strategies and suggestions and all of that. I don't know how, see, a lot of these people are my friends and I know them and all of that. So I would hate to be critical or skeptical of something that I'm not an expert at, but hearing 100 people say 100 different things you should do every day kind of subconsciously nudges your mind to think in a certain way. If you hear 100 optimistic voices, you might not realize it, but on the inside you start developing this fear of missing out, and you start to think all these people are buying and making money. You might not actually consciously think that. But at some level, you start believing all these people are bullish and market is going up and they're all buying and recommending people to buy, and you're missing out in a way. I don't think that is useful for a trader. I think you need to ward off the noise and try to figure out a way in which you have some amount of a vacuum where you can think and make decisions. So I think that would be the first recommendation to a trader. Like, don't let your mind space get too chaotic, thinking who's doing what. Even if it's not consciously, subconsciously, I don't think that helps. Second thing, remember that, India is a cog in a wheel which is much larger. We have become so correlated with the West and with the rest of the world that what happens there really affects us. I might be wrong and this might not be 100% accurate, but one could say that a large part of why we have rallied as much is because of how much the Federal Reserve has printed and how much money has percolated down into emerging economies. And there are so many different things which are changing across the world. You can't really process all that information accurately, but I think it's important to know that what will happen in stock markets tomorrow is a factor of all of that. And bear that in mind when you think, you invest in something. If it works out, if it does not work out, is not a factor of that company alone, but a factor of what's happening in the world at large. I feel like traders do not spend enough time. The third thing, they don't spend enough time looking at macro trends. We spend maybe too much time thinking about what will happen next week or next month or next quarter ka result. I think it's important to make sure the companies which we are bullish on and the companies which we are bearish on are in bull or bear cycles from a long-term perspective.
Trend.
I would not say trend of price, but I would say trend of sector. If you believe climate change is real, if you believe the amount of carbon we have put in the universe is a problem, if you feel renewable energy has an optimistic outlook in the next 10 years, immaterial of what you're doing daily, like one day you might be shorting, the other day you might be going long, but it's very important to establish you're going long in companies in the renewable sector. Is that because you're bullish about it in 10 years, or do you believe the industry does not have much legs beyond a certain point of time? I think on the converse, you could make the same thing for companies which have which are refiners or upstream oil companies or oil marketing companies. You can have the opposite narrative for that. But be short even intraday in what you want to be short long term, and be long intraday in what you want to be long term.
So next big question is trading versus investing. I know that you must have answered it 100 times, but
Right.
I want you to answer it from perspective of next 5 years.
Because I feel markets are expensive. If you were sitting at 8,000 Nifty, I would have said investing. If I had foresight, which I don't. But let me just wager a guess and say, when markets are cheaper, investing starts to work. When markets are expensive, trading works.
So in trading, right now, most of the people are focusing on technical. But you are saying that with technical, you have to combine fundamentals, you have to combine macro factors, and you have to have bigger picture in mind.
See, that is my recipe for my dish, right? You have to build your own recipe. But like I said, I don't even know if all this works. It might all be placebo, where my conditions, my conditioning in the time that I've been in the market has made me think they work. So they might have worked to a certain extent in the last 15 years. And based on that, today I can sit here and tell you they work. But does that mean they will work in the next 5-10 years? Probably not. You'll have to figure out what that is and then make that your recipe.
First book on investing जो आपने पढ़ी थी, or maybe trading.
First book I read, maybe Market Wizards. Yeah. I don't like to read what comes out today because, the current bestsellers often do not remain bestsellers 10 years down the line. I like to read historically what has sold. It could be even in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whenever, because stock markets, more than many other things, are very cyclical. What worked today will not work tomorrow, but will work day after tomorrow or like 1 week later. So in terms of, Market Wizards and all are like fiction, right? They're
Stories,
it's
interesting
about,
stories, and you'll enjoy it.
I remember Reminiscence of a Stock
Operator, yeah.
A little more theory would be that Benjamin Graham's The Intelligent Investor. So to be fair, I used to read a lot of books on the stock market. I stopped maybe 5-6 saal pehle. I like philosophy, psychology and history. And in the last few years, I've probably read books around that. Yeah, not around stock markets. Somehow there is a intersection there. I feel like it's strange, but I feel like reading about psychology is better than reading about the stock markets to work in the stock markets.
Now, if I talk about life, क्या next goals?
बदलते रहते हैं यार. Like it's funny. People start assuming you're more sorted than you actually are when they don't know you. Like now we have met. You hang out with me for a bit. You'll be like, इसमें ये flaw है, वो है. This is good. That is bad. So what I think I want from life is constantly changing. At some level, I know I want peace of mind, but the path I choose is not necessarily always walking towards that. Now, it wouldn't be right for me to say my endeavor is to achieve peace of mind, but I'm going to try 5 new businesses and spend all of my time doing it, because then I'm taking away from my own goal. So I would say it's a moving goal post, and it's not moving from here to here. It's moving in circles and in 3 dimensions, and basically, to summarize, I would say confusion.
So any which ways, you are conservative. There is a new asset class, NFT, cryptos, which are emerging right now.
Right.
I know that you are conservative, but if there's an investor who want to take a bet on it, what's your opinion on that?
To be fair, like, considering when we are doing this interview, like, it is very hard for a new investor to fund a crypto wallet in India today and buy most of what you're talking about. Especially after M-Swipe, the last guy kind of shut down 10-15 days ago. For the people who already have crypto and who have money in crypto wallets, मेरे ख्याल से, whatever is the flavor of the season, you should avoid. Like, it doesn't matter if it's crypto, NFT, Adani Group companies today or whatever. Like, you turn on the news.
And it's not a recommendation, by the way.
No, not at all. Not at all. Whatever is in the news too much, stay away from it. Like, turn on the news and, like, if you were to, like, write some kind of a program to record how much time is spent on speaking about what. If they're speaking too much about a certain group of companies or a certain product, avoid it. I would say the same for NFTs. I believe in the use case for the metaverse. I mean, a very simple use case could be, we're doing this session right now, and we had to travel and you had to take a flight and all of that. Now, if the same experience could somehow be created on a digital platform and save us that trouble, outside of having the same amount of efficiency that we have now, it's good for the world. So much carbon that got expended did not have to be done. You save a lot of time. In that way, I see the use case for the metaverse, but how that will manifest is a tough one to call.
Any final word of advice? कि बेटा ये तो मान लेना और कुछ माने नहीं माने.
नहीं यार, I feel like everything in the stock markets are transient. What you think today, you'll think something else tomorrow, and that will constantly change. I think the key is to not to hold on to anything too much. The day you start sticking to a certain strategy, a certain school of thought, saying this is what works, and if you start to become so attached to it that you can't change, I think is bad for you. Always know that you could probably be wrong in whatever you're doing at that point of time, and look for noises of what could be changing and be willing to change. You'd rather change first and be an idiot than change last and lose everything.
Amazing. Thank you so much for doing this.